Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we are having a look at a 1.89 data mine which was made by Gentlespie. Now, if you don't know who Gentlespie is, it is definitely worth learning who he is. So Gentlespie is a person who is part of the War Thunder community who does a hell of a lot for it. He makes sound mods, he makes exploring maps, as you can see just from his War Thunder live page. He also works on fixing models which have been out to date for a long time. The reason why I was able to make the A10 video a week or so ago is because of Gentlespie. And he also data mines, he does a lot for the community, and I just have to thank him so much for the work that he does, because of the fact that he puts in so much effort and never really gets recognized too much. So if you are, there, or if you want to thank him for the stuff that he does, such as this data mine and all the other stuff he's done for the community, make sure to do so. Because as somebody who does get, DMs through Discord or in the comments of videos, it definitely brightens your day to see messages such as thank you for the work that you do and all of this. So, as I've said, thank you to Gentlespie for the work that you do, and hopefully in the future you create many more wonderful things, such as the massive exploring maps. These are some of my favorite because it means that you can see maps outside of the boundaries that they actually are. Anyway, so let's get into it. The links to the data mine itself will be in the description below, so you can have a look for yourself. Basically, it goes over some of or all of the vehicles which were put onto the dev server, some which were in the files, and others which were just there. So we're going to skip over the ones that I've already talked about and get to the meat and two veg. So the first thing is obviously some new vehicle pictures. We have the Bradley ADATs, which I covered. I also covered the Flarak KPZ1, or the the Flarak PZ1. I'll never get used to saying that. It's a horrible word for me to say. But this machine, I did make a video on. I would like to clarify, like I did in this video, it is not in the tech tree right now. It is not in the German tech tree. It was just in the files. It makes sense if it comes to the German tech tree because it would follow the Bradley ADATs and also the stuff such as the Stormer HVM, the Tunguska, and also the Roland 1 for the French. So it would make complete sense to put this for the Germans at this time. Now, when I tested it, the radar didn't seem to be working. It had a really cool reload feature. If you want to see it, go here. But understand that this is not in the preliminary notes for the update. It wasn't technically on the dev server either. We had to create a user mission around it to show it to you guys. So yeah, this is a different one. It is just a Marder chassis with the Roland missile system on top of it. It fires the Roland missiles. It fires the Roland 1s and 3s. Exactly the same idea behind this as the French one with the AMX-30 chassis. So yeah, that's all that is there. Then you've got the Sturm, which we talked about, the Stormer as well. Then the C1 Ariete production. Very surprised to see that this had very similar armor to the prototype. But as I said, the armor values for the preliminary notes, it said for these machines that, the armor values weren't fully completed yet or were not fully ready. Now this is an interesting one. This is kind of in the same boat as the Flarak, so the Type 16. Now, what is interesting about this is, once again, I did make a video on it, so if you want to see it for yourself, go ahead. Both of these videos were taken off War Thunder Live for me, and they were labeled as misinformation, and I can understand why, because of the fact that they were on the dev server, but they weren't on the dev server. Does that make sense? Like, it's kind of like when I do the in-game ones for the user missions. these were in the same boat as those, where they're not in the tech trees, but they are technically there. So there's no confirmation that either this machine, the Type 16, or the Flarak are coming to the game in update 1.89. I would just be incredibly surprised if they weren't, but just understand that is the case for these machines. You can see that it seems to have either color issues, it's not fully done yet. The model itself is HD as all hell. It looks absolutely beautiful. The X-ray as well works really well, and you can see these are the general colors of it. Very very Defense Force style colors, and the gun that it mounts is the Type 74's gun. It fires exactly the same ammunition as it, and its top round was obviously the Type 93 shell with the 405, 350, 234. If you played the Type 74 or the Type 74G, you will be very familiar with this round. Another thing as well is once we go lower, you'll see that the Type 16 was at BR 9.3 at least. So this is more of a Centauro row more than it is a Centauro because of its APF SDS and also its general speed. Hopefully it gets scouting if it comes to the game in this update. We'll have to see. But yeah, that technically wasn't on the dev server, but it is in the files. The Leclerc S1, of course, the turret armor, there's no way that is right on the dev server. Then the Super, which has actually caused some controversy. This machine did exist in real life. There are many Russian sources that you can read about it. There are pictures of it. And it seems like people are a little bit confused. They think, because Weish made a comment on the dev blog for the MX-30 that he believed that they copied the one which was in a museum, and then people inferred that that meant that they'd copied the wrong one because the one in the museum isn't an MX-30 Super, but they haven't copied that one in the museum. This is from the, you can tell by the pictures of it that it is the MX-30 Super and not the other one. So yeah, that was just odd to see a lot of people kind of get confused by that. But I think, Weish's comments didn't help with that, but he did clarify in the comments about, like, he believed this. So he wasn't making a definitive statement. He was just saying, this is what he believes. So, obviously, I don't really hold him to anything like that because it's wrong to. People make slight mistakes, and that's fine. And then, moving on, we have the Hunter F6, of course, the ME-264, the Big Bertha. Hopefully they fixed the graphical glitch that this thing had. If you didn't know, I showed it in the video for the 264, but if you looked at it at specific angles, the fuselage would disappear and it would gain two tails. And it was just one of those very odd things. Also, my 13mm gunner on this side was just not firing, and that was just odd to me. Because you'd want it to fire. You'd want it to be able to shoot out. Obviously the J5 as well, the Mauler, the F86K. Didn't get to test this one. We'll do on the next iteration of the dev server. And here is another plane that wasn't in the tech trees, but was on the dev server, the Yak-3U. Now, the Yak-3U is an interesting machine. Right, so Mr. Commie Tears actually made a really nice pass for consideration post in 2015 about the Yak-3U, and it seems to be the last piston engine fighter that Yakovlev produced, and it was a prototype. It could either hold two 20mm B-20s or a pair of 23mm NS-23s, and the Yak-3U replaced the V12 engine with an 1850 horsepower radial, along with a few other changes. So you can see that the engine, the PDAL82FN, was a lot more powerful than the previous Yaks. And you can see it also changed, they built a new fuselage for it, but you can see the differences between the Yak-3s that we have in game and this, which is the Yak-3U. It is much more of a chunky boy, and I would definitely say this is they're going to try and make this kind of like the I-225. I don't think it'll be a premium. My guess is it'll be in the tree, and I think personally it won't do too well. Rank 4 Soviet propellers don't do great because they're stuck in a middle ground where they're not great energy fighters, and because of that, they get outdone by stuff like the Bf-109K4 and the TARS. So hopefully, this plane will help with that. The I-225 is a good aircraft, but it just gets up-tiered all the time. So into jets, and it doesn't do well against jets. So yeah, hopefully the Yak-3U will be all right. This should be the best performing Yak-3 that we get in the game. The Yak-3P is still a monster. The Yak-3 is still a monster in the game. So yeah, let's just add a few more to that. If you want to read more information about it, as I said, Mr. Comitiz did a great write-up about it. I also included some pictures and some designs and sources for you to have a look at. If it's a premium, I would rather it not be a premium because we already have the VK. So it would be nice if it was put in the actual tech tree, or maybe some kind of gift vehicle. Then the ships. So we've covered all of the ships before. All of these are I've already gone over in either the Japanese naval video or the other naval video. They only put 2 ships for other nations, where it kind of makes sense because you get a whole tech tree for the Japanese, but it does seem like it would have been nice to maybe get a few others. I talked about before how it would have been nice to have some... What would be the case? What would you call it? Some other heavy cruisers for other nations, kind of just to balance it out. Because right now, you technically have 2 heavy cruisers for the Japanese, and then you have 2 heavy cruisers by the British definition for the Soviets, the Krasnys. So, yeah, it would have been nice to see something else, but at least we get the Southampton, right? Like, the Town class looks really fun. The Brooklyn is very competitive. The people to worry about right now are the Germans. So I feel kind of bad that they didn't really get anything. But then again, they made, as is well known, stuff such as they're called pocket battleships. You know, stuff like the Prince Eugen and machines like that, which are much bigger than some of the machines we have in game. It seems like we're going along that path, though, right? We're gonna get stuff like the Eugen eventually into the game, so I wouldn't wait too much. Maybe Gamescom, that will be like the big reveal, battleships or something very close to that. Then we actually have a helicopter. So this is the AH-1S. Now, there's a lot of interesting information about the AH-1S, and I do have it written down in a notepad thing, so I'm going to just pull it up. So we've already talked about the Flak PZ, and the AH-1S, it's a Japanese premium. And the evidence given for this is in the files. The modules cost 0 RP. And also, it is 0 RP and GE to be able to research and also, get the modules. So what this means is, when you know how all the premiums in the game, you get all of the modifications for free. And when you purchase the premium or when you get gifted it, when you see 0 RP in the files, that's what it means. It means you get them all for free. It's also one of the text files for it is the country_Japan, showing that this is a Japanese premium, and we don't have a Japanese helicopter tree, remember? So this would kind of be out on its own, which is kind of funny. And also, another line which kind of gives it away is the free repairs equals 30. The majority of machines, or all of the machines, I think, which are in the standard tech trees, get 10 free repairs, where premiums get 30. So that would also constitute it being a premium. Then also it has a line which is gift MSI_notebook. It seems like all of the premium vehicles in the game have this line, or it may be that all gift vehicles have this line, but I believe it's all premiums. So everything points towards this AH-1S being a premium for Japan. And before we go on, I'll also talk about a few other things in this notepad. So they got rid of the show only when bought for the squadron vehicles, and they also did it for a bunch of event vehicles. You know, this was in the preliminary patch notes, so you can see a bunch of them in the tech trees. You can test drive them. You can use protection analysis on them. It's really cool. And the idea is with them also doing it to the squadron vehicles, so you can see them in the tech trees, is hopefully soon, either on the update or just after, the squadron vehicle system where you can grind these vehicles with your squadron will be implemented. I mean, we've been looking forward to that for a long time. At least the Tech ES and the Tech WS squadrons have, two squadrons in game. And it's been kind of a bummer that it's been... well, it hasn't been forgotten about. They actually answered a question on it. So somebody asked, where were the vehicles? Because they said they'd come out in update 1.87. And I believe Esmond said that they'd run into a technical issue with them. And obviously, no idea what the technical issue is, but the fact that there is one, hopefully that is fixed, because it looks to me like a really fun way of getting squadrons more involved, just like World War Mode, making them have more of a purpose. And now, compared to a year ago, they have massive purposes, which is wonderful. Also, they reduced the XP required for the Firecrest again. The Firecrest also in the files was a 4.0 machine, showing that it's actually lower than the plane it was supposed to replace, the Firebrand, which was hilarious. And the KV-2 got nerfed, or specifically the HE shell on it. The OF-530 lost 1 kilo of TNT. So it's down from 6.86 to 5.86, and I just feel bad for it, It's just, the KV-2 already has a lot of problems, but to be honest, I only use like the anti-concrete shell on it, but if you are one of those HE guys, just understand your HE is going to do less damage now. But anyway, back to the AH-1S. What is this thing? And the wonderful thing about many American classifications is they make everything completely annoying when it comes to working out what stuff is. So this is an AH-1S. The AH-1S is an upgraded AH-1Q. The AH-1 and the way it's upgraded from an AH-1Q is they added in an 1800 horsepower turbo shaft engine, the T53L703, and also the interesting thing is because of the AH series of helicopters, depending on when you're actually looking in history, they all have very similar names. So the AH-1F helicopter was changed into, well, not all AH-1Fs, but see it as an upgrade pattern, right? So you take an AH-1F, you upgrade it with the ability to carry certain munitions, and then it becomes the AH-1Q. So the AH-1Q is taking an AH-1G and being... sorry, let's start again. So see the AHs as an upgrade pattern, right? So you start off with an AH-1G. In order to upgrade it to an AH-1Q, which is eventually what leads to the AH-1S, you add in many different armament systems. So the AH-1Q added the M28A1E1 turret, which was standardized as the M28A2. They also added the XM65 TOW and Cobra missile system, an infrared sight, and an XM128 helmet sight subsystem. And also, the AH-1Q is equipped to fire 8 Hughes BGM-71 130mm TOWs, anti-tank missiles in a pair of 2-round pods on the outboard pylons. You can see them right here, right? These are the TOW missiles that it's talking about. So what is the M28A2 system? Now, I've been having a look for a while, and I found a bunch of things such as a manual, which seems to be, this is an armament subsystem repair parts manual for this machine. So, and it talks about the 7.62 MG and the 40mm, because in my preliminary looks for this, I typed in the M28A2, and I got this thing. It's a heat rocket, and I was like, there's a turret on this thing that fires rockets? Why would you do that? And then I realized they just have the same name. So what it's actually talking about here, the M28A1E1 turret, or the M28A2, is this thing here, which holds either the 40mm grenade launcher or the 7.62. So this is very similar to what we already have in game, if not exactly the same. And if you actually look in game, the AH-1F that we have in the American tree has an AH-1S skin, right? And there is a reason for that, but we'll get into it. So we've taken an AH-1G, we've upgraded its weapon systems, so it's become an AH-1Q, and then in order to upgrade the AH-1Q to the AH-1S, we give it a better engine. So an AH-1S is an AH-1G with toes, a slightly different front turret, and a better engine. But the thing is, this is also known as an AH-1F. You see why it's confusing. So it goes AH-1G, AH-1Q to AH-1S. But the AH-1F existed before the AH-1S. But the AH-1F that we have in game should be exactly the same to the AH-1S that you're looking at here and the one that is in the files, but it has a different name. And the reason for that is because after the AH-1Ss were adopted, they were renamed to the AH-1F. You see how annoying that is from an outside perspective, trying to understand like how all of this stuff works. Like it's just like the A26 B26 thing again. Like it's just when you're looking at it from a historical point of view and not completely familiar with everything, it is so confusing. So at the end of the day, what is the AH-1S? Well, it's exactly the same, or should be, I should say, exactly the same as the AH-1F that we have in game. An AH series which has access to the weapon systems of an AH-1Q and the engine of an AH-1S. And this one is Japanese. So my guess is that this will be the Japanese premium when the helicopters come out. There are some interesting things about, the Japanese premiums. It isn't, the Japanese helicopters. There aren't a ton of them out there, but I definitely think you can make a pretty fun tree out of them. There's also some armament stats as well, and vehicle stat cards, so you can see these preliminary numbers. Remember that a lot of these will get changed. They always do, so make sure to, take these with a pinch of salt. Like the Leclerc is 250,000 RP right now, which is just insane. Like, it makes no sense. And as you can see, the Type 16 is labeled at 250,000 RP, 690,000 SL, and 9.3. So this thing has the same BR as the Sturm. I really think they should drop the Sturm in BR. Then, of course, you have some other costs. The one that stands out is the F6, which is sat at 400,000 RP, 1,030,000 SL. So that is going to be Britain's top-tier vehicle. They're really going to push for that, which makes sense, It is going to be a top-tier vehicle. The 264 is at 46,000 RP with 150,000 SL, so that won't be too expensive. And as you can see, the AH-1S, it's 0 RP, 10,000 SL to buy, and a BR of 10.0. So if this does come into the game as a premium, it will be a top tier premium, which I personally am not happy with, but then again, it is helicopters, so there's a bit more leeway. As I said, the Type 16 uses the same gun as the Type gun and ammo as the Type 74. The 9P149 and the 9M114 with 560mm of pen of stock, and the 9M120 for upgrade with 800mm. So they've slightly changed them. The AH-1S has the M197 minigun, FRs, and also the XM18. You can see that from the picture that was there. They've changed the pen on the 9M119 to 700mm, and also there are some new maps. So this is the first one. It's a volcanic island. This to me either looks like an arcade air map or it looks like a naval map. The reason why I don't think it's a naval map is because the center part is way too segregated from the rest of it. Generally, you want the center to be a place to be fought over, but this could be a different style of map. But this really reminds me of like an Air Arcade map. The fact that it's Volcanic Island, it would be cool to see a volcano in the center of it. But yeah, if it is a naval map, it will be a change from the norm. Whereas if it's an Air Arcade map, it would make sense. Then the last one is an air map. Oh, wait. Oh, it says naval map. Never mind. Sorry. I'm being an idiot. So this is a naval map, so it will be a break from the norm, unless maybe they put the points over here or something. I'm very much interested to see on where the points are going to be on this. Hopefully on the second dev server, we will see that. Then we've got an air map, Smolensk, which is definitely looking like a realistic map to me. It goes all the way from Rydnia to Yarkevo, or Glinka. And Smolensk is a very important area when it comes to World War II. The operation that we did at the start of World War mode was part of Operation Barbarossa in 1941. It was the German offensive just before they got into, Smolensk, near areas like Krasny. And Smolensk was seen as a very important place to take because of obviously all the road networks around it and also some of the industry there. So there was two battles for Smolensk. There was the one in the 1941, and then there was one in 1944 where the 3rd Panzer Division, or the 3rd Panzer Army, was annihilated by the Soviets. They completely destroyed the 3rd Panzer Army, which is something you don't normally see, but it also shows the desperation that the Germans were in at that point when fighting that battle in 1944. If you want to see where this is on a Google map, you can see it right here. Then you have, Rudnia, Yartsevo, Vasyuki, Glinka. So this is the general area, and you can see the main roads coming in. And this does, to me, look like an aerialistic map, but it doesn't seem like a jet map. For me, this could easily be folded into World War mode. It would be lovely to have some battles around Smolensk and maybe the small villages when it comes to ground realistic and arcade, but I can definitely see how this could be an aerialistic map, but not a top tier one. This is going to be a mid tier one. I don't think it's big enough for a top tier one, to be honest with you. It doesn't at least seem to be big enough if we just look at the general surrounding area and the size that we're looking at. But anyway, those are all the notes from the Datamine themselves. Apart from this as well, some new sounds. The Fmod Studio sound engine is coming, and they talked about this in the preliminary notes, so I covered it there, so I won't cover it again. And as I said, I just really want to thank Gentlespie for putting this together. When somebody takes time out of their day to do something that they don't have to do to give people more information, I think that always should be credited when making these things. So I just want to say thank you to him. I also want to say thank you all for watching, and if you want to see this yourself, make sure to have a look in the description. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank B. Young, Blackie, Daniel Stanton, John Ryman, Martinez, Matity, Moxie, Nito, Nick Graham, Alobralo, Sebastian Corona, Super Cacti, and Elove Goats and Seductive Trashcan for supporting the channel.